Rick Sanchez is a terrible person. Now, I'm a Rick and Morty ride or die, but let's face it, the guy's got one heck of a mean streak.
Yeah, I've got about 1,000 memories of your dumb little ass, and about 6 of them are pleasant. So why don't you do us both a favor and do it? Do it, motherfucker! Pull the fucking trigger!
The truth is, hurt people. Meaning there's gotta be a reason for Rick to act so awful on a daily basis. So today, I found every episode that makes you feel bad for Rick, and rest assured, these moments definitely explain some things. Oh yeah, there's actually a real tragic figure behind all those burps and insults. Just you wait and see. Kicking things off, we have autoerotic assimilation, where we see that behind the galaxy-sized brain that he's got, Rick is a lot like an ice cream machine at McDonald's. Broken.
Tend your garden, kids. I'm kind of doing a thing here.
That sombrero alone is enough to tell you his mind is gone. It starts off lighthearted, fun even. Rick, Morty, and Summer are cruising through space, blasting tunes, and sharing a rare, wholesome moment. For a second, I almost forgot which show I was watching. Then a distress signal goes off. Rick's knee-jerk reaction? Respond immediately. Good. Loot the ship and its supposedly dead alien passengers? Not so good. Once aboard, they discover the alien crew isn't dead, but very much alive, and in full-blown panic mode. It turns out that some mind-absorbing entity has overrun their planet, and this thing is actually great at its job. I mean, it even hits me with this harsh reminder of exactly what show I'm watching. Trust Rick to be on a first-name basis with a planet-enslaving alien creature. Turns out he dated this thing, or more specifically, this hive mind, and its name is Unity. And brother, that's some chef's kiss branding. Next, Rick and the kids land on a planet where Unity's sorta body snatched everyone. Rick tells them to hang out with Unity so he can hang out with Unity, who gives Rick a tour. On their walk, Unity tells Rick about her very scary endgame.
From there, I'll have access to countless planets and species.
I will unify them, and I will be what the single-minded once called a god.
Move over, girl boss. Here comes girl god. I won't lie, the planet does look pretty functional. No war, no poverty, no free will. Rick's all in. There's just one tiny problem. Unity got rid of all the booze. Rick shamelessly uses his family as proof that he's a changed man. It's good enough for Unity. They passionately lock lips until Rick pauses to ask for some minor things to set the mood.
We need a hang glider and a crotchless Uncle Sam costume, and I want the stands packed with every man that remotely resembles my father.
Not to kink shame, but what? What? Meanwhile, Summer and Morty are hanging out by the pool next to a fat stack of hamburgers. Morty's stoked, but Summer's not really feeling the whole slave planet thing. Unity's ally, Beta 7, a neighboring hive mind, stops by for a visit, and the most awkward conversation I've ever witnessed is on my screen right now. Thankfully, Rick saves us from Beta 7's painful fumble when he spots something in a ship.
Oh, snap! Powdered neutronium and Fetatron?
Oh, Rick, I shouldn't.
Come on, it's for old time's sake.
Okay, what the hell?
Unity, ain't you meant to be the one controlling minds around here? Looks like keeping up with a guy who's like 7% sober at any given time is bad for you. Things go completely haywire when the people use shiny new free will to start a race war. Spiral nipples versus cone nipples. I understand. Their vicious bare knuckle battles got me thinking that we should find Unity. In all senses of the word. Suddenly, all fingers and nipples are pointed at Summer and Morty, who get into this dicey situation.
We're neither! See?
Yeah, take my word for it.
These two freaks have no race!
You know what? Yeah, screw these unhinged nipple racists. Luckily, Unity comes to their rescue, and by some miracle, they make it back to headquarters. The kids demand to see Rick, who eventually stumbles out, bottle of booze in hand, and refuses to go home. Summer puts her foot down.
Grandpa Rick, we're not leaving without you. I think Unity's great and you're a horrible influence on it.
What?
Oh yeah, that truth really packs a punch, don't it? When Morty agrees, Rick says that they should ask Unity. She sides with Rick and says things aren't as bad as they look. Well, yeah, because they're worse. Eventually, Morty and Summer head home without their no-good grandpa. Later, it's painfully clear the novelty and the drugs have worn off for everyone except Rick. Unity subtly hints that he should check in on his grandkids, but Rick just goes ahead and throws Summer and Morty right under the bus.
They're no different from any of the aimless chumps that you occupy. They put put you there. They want you to be less powerful.
Ah, jeez, take it easy, Adolf. His little insane speech makes Unity finally see the painful truth. Rick is never going to change. So when Rick comes out of the bathroom, he discovers that he's all alone on an empty planet. Unity's gone, leaving him with nothing but a long, painfully honest goodbye letter.
I lose who I am and become part of you, because in a strange way, you're better at what I do without even trying. Yours, and nobody else's. Unity.
Dude, even I feel broken up with. I guess Rick always drags people down to his level. The tragic part is that most of the time he doesn't even mean to. The party's officially over and Rick heads home. Something feels off when Rick doesn't argue with Beth or Jerry, specifically. He just heads to his garage, builds a death ray, casually. And as I watch him test it on a deformed alien, comforting it before vaporizing it, I mean, yeah, my gut was telling me that this wasn't one of his usual wacky schemes. And then he does this.
Do you feel that I can see your soul?
The dude's saved by drinking an entire planet under the table. Luckily, he passes out and self-destruction ironically rescues him from himself. Here, I was starkly reminded that Rick's wild partying isn't just about fun, it's a shield. When instead of protecting him from the harshness of the world, it protects him from the people he cares about the most. It's clear Rick needed some therapy, and what do you know? We got an episode centered around the poor soul hired to help with his mental health up next in Air Force Wong. We watch Rick confront the 3 Ps, his psychologist, his past, and his president.
And don't be a space Mormon!
Why not?
It's silly! Sorry, worship how you want. I like Tom Cruise.
Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't get any less weird from here. We kick off with Rick in Dr. Wong's office, getting the therapy he so desperately needs when the president comes a-knocking. He's very obviously hitting on Wong here before taking Rick away from his inner demons so he could face an actual monster. President Curtis calls Rick over later and shows him that something is up with Virginia.
There's no crime, no poverty. The governor just hit 100% approval rating.
Just a politician to find a problem with someone fixing things. Curtis wants to put a crack team together. Rick, a couple of robots, and a psychology expert. Well, how convenient. Rick sees right through and storms off. Next, Dr. Wong and the president are very obviously flirting as the team heads to Virginia. They manage to get into the state using the power of negotiation and a tiny nuke threat. And the governor gives them a tour. President Curtis is impressed at how well everything's going. He asks the governor what his secret is, an innocent question that somehow sets off a wild series of events.
My God, so that's it? You're all just drunk.
Sir, it's some kind of body-snatching hive mind!
Ha! Who's the space Mormon now? When Rick rescues them, he knows exactly who's behind all this. She tries to reason with him, but he's moved on so much he invented a Unity repellent. While I don't believe him, I can't deny that the repellent works. Rick's obviously still hurting when he vents about her not calling, and then he goes full-blown emo mode, no pun intended.
Calm down! We came because we're worried about you!
We hear things, Rick. Is it true you're looking for him again?
Yeah, dude, should really cool it. Also, who is this mysterious him? He is so not over Unity. President Curtis orders an energy dome to be placed around Virginia. Rick's idea, of course. Later in the war room, the president, tired of all the negative backlash, asks Rick how long the barrier needs to be up for.
It will contain that part of Unity until I shut it down. One of us here knows how to set boundaries.
Someone's jealous. Because why else would Rick act like such a big baby? When he crosses the line, the president challenges him to a fight when they suddenly spot an incoming ship. Unity video calls them and tries to reason with Rick and his therapist and the president. She finally gets a word in, giving them this warning.
I need to reconnect those people so I can properly release them. If it connects to another mind, it could become its own colony.
Oh, wow.
That's legit the only helpful thing anyone said this entire time. But why admit it when there's a 4-way bickering match to be had? Eventually, Rick says that he'll take care of the Virginians and give her an unnecessarily harsh goodbye before doing the same to Curtis and Wong. We then find Rick alone, again, in his lab where Summer tries to comfort him when he snaps at her. When's the last time you saw your therapist? When Rick exclaims that he saw her today without missing a beat, she fires back.
Well, then she sucks.
No shit! I need boundaries!
Well, here's a big one, face.
Sorry.
I think I need a moment. Did Rick Sanchez really just say sorry and mean it? Sure, it's not to her face, but still, big steps, guys. The next day, Curtis is flying over Virginia to spray Rick's anti-Unity mix. Taking out his phone was a bad move, though, because when he sees news reporters still trashing him, he suddenly shifts gears.
Shit!
Dude must really want that approval rating because that's just beyond gross. Needless to say, all hell breaks loose as President Curtis goes on an insane body snatching spree. Meanwhile, Rick's in the lab, crankier than ever, when Morty rushes in and convinces him to check out the news. Watching hive mind Curtis take over both presenters pushes Rick into action, saving and rehiring Dr. Wong in one fell swoop. She thinks Rick wants her to talk to Curtis, but he explains,
No talking to him. I need Unity's help, so you need to convince her I'm worth it.
You aren't.
So lie.
oh, right in the self-esteem. Rick sneaks Dr. Wong onto Unity's vessel to vouch for him, but he can't talk to Unity without starting an argument. When Dr. Wong finds out that Rick ignored Unity's attempts to reach out, she takes Unity's side before dropping these little golden therapy nugs.
You had an outer space lady who was worried for your life. Now you're asking her to both forgive you and solve it?
We finally get there when Dr. Wong tells Unity that Rick's too scared to admit that he's changing because it's happening very slowly, but it is indeed happening. Rick doesn't like this, but luckily for everyone else on Earth, Unity does. So next we see Unity launch a full-scale alien invasion and de-Curtises everyone with her neon green goo until the president finds himself surrounded. Forget reading the room, this guy's not even skimming over it when he pulls a move that shows me that maybe it's okay to hate the player if this is his game.
Wait, Unity, what are you doing? All right, Rick.
Nice job, Yoon.
Cut to Unity's spaceship where we see how much Unity cares for Rick genuinely when she does something she wouldn't do for anyone else and releases everyone. Though the god tier move of giving 100 million people free will completely drains Unity, who falls to her knees. And what does Unity get for baring her heart and risking her neck for Rick? Well, he just stands there awkwardly before offering her drugs. He then lets it slip that he's on a few painkillers himself. Unity finally cuts her losses and says,
I mean, you can hang out if you want. Come see the kids. I trust you now.
That's nice, but I don't trust you.
yeah, that's gotta hurt. While I don't blame Unity for the cold exit, I do feel terrible for Rick when I see how much this crushes him. Back in his lab, he listens to Unity's voice notes as he gets drunk alone again. Tragically, this is far from Rick's rock bottom because next we see that there's always multi-dimensions to Rick's madness and sadness. The Rick Shank redemption is mostly remembered for accidentally inciting near riots over a certain chicken tendy dipping sauce, but to me, it's an apt reminder of just how far Rick can and will go to get his way. Right off the bat, something feels off. Rick and his family are acting like an actual family for once. They're all sitting in a booth at Shoney's having a good time, though clearly Rick also smells a rat, so he orders Jerry to get out of the booth, take his clothes off, and fold himself over 12 times. And Jerry does not disappoint.
You got it.
6 folds, huh? What do you guys got me in a Series 9000?
That beats my high score. Sadly, Rick's not in a booth at Shoney's, but in an orange jumpsuit on a Galactic Federation ship connected to a BrainLink device. But getting into Rick's mind ain't easy. Plus, Shoney's his psychological fortress. Unfortunately, it's slowly crumbling under the agent's relentless attempts to unlock his memory, creating his first portal gun. Rick keeps his cool until the agent finally hits a nerve.
If we stay here, you'll die. If you take me where I want to go, she'll be there too, won't she?
The day I invented the portal gun is the day I lost her.
This can't possibly end well. Later, Rick and the Federation agent are cruising down memory lane, quite literally. They stop at a drive-thru to order some nuggets at the side of the now infamous Szechuan sauce, a limited edition promo. Next, we see a younger, less crusty-looking Rick testing out an early version of the portal gun, leading to this multi-dimensional encounter.
Part about inventing teleportation. Suddenly you're able to travel the whole galaxy, and the first thing you learn is, fortunately, you're about to invent something much more powerful.
Ew, dude, keep it in your shirt, man. Rick and the agent watch past Rick turn down Rick Prime's offer to free will between timelines, saying that it sounds lonely. Then a gorgeous blonde mystery lady comes in. When she asks if Rick's made a breakthrough, he says something very out of character.
I don't think this science thing is gonna pay off.
Why don't I get Beth and we'll go out for ice cream?
The last great idea that will ever be had in this garage.
Ain't that the truth? So, yeah, if you didn't already put it together, this is Rick's wife. In the present, the smashing of a portal gun sends a distress call to the Council of Ricks, who portal in, find out about Rick C-137's imprisonment, and start cooking up a plan. C-137 is our Rick, by the way.
Very troubling. We'll dispatch SEAL Team Ricks immediately to break into the prison holding C-137 and assassinate him.
Boo, nah.
And just like that, things go from worse to much worse. Back in Rick's memory, a bomb drops in a random portal that just popped up, and it kills his entire family. Rick's despair pushes him to make a breakthrough, his very first portal gun. As the agent celebrates finally getting the formula, he learns that Rick has flipped the script on him because this air quote memory was just a decoy.
It's a trap! Abort! I'm still in his Shoney's. Repeat!
Mission accomplished, boys. Pull me out. Okay, have fun in what's left of my brain. I'm gonna transfer to yours.
Classic Rick playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers. But I wondered just how much of that decoy was real. Back in the Federation ship, Rick transfers his consciousness into an agent's body. Unfortunately, his victory is very short-lived as the SEAL Team Rick swoops in and just starts a blasting. Luckily, Rick manages to hijack the body of a high-ranking Rick and transport the entire Citadel into a Galactic Federation prison. All seems to be going very smoothly until he sees a council member holding Summer hostage. C-137 nearly convinces Council Rick that he doesn't really care about Summer, so he should just kill her. Desperate to save his sister, Morty takes the gun Rick gave him and points it at his grandpa, making everyone go full-on gloves off at poor Morty.
Basically killed us all. What an idiot, Morty. Your Rick had the dumbest thing I've ever laid eyes on.
Who's stupid now, bitch?
My dude didn't even try the old I'm rubber, you're glue trick. When Citadel Rick gets distracted and releases Summer, C-137 kills him instantly. Turns out he gave Morty a decoy gun with instructions. Instructions Morty didn't bother to read. When they make it to the Federation main console, Rick turns the value of their currency from 1 to 0. We then see Rick's plan in action as each high-ranking Federation member wonders how they're getting paid.
I can answer that. For money.
Gentlemen, there's a solution here you're not seeing.
Well, that's definitely one way to solve your problems. I wouldn't personally recommend it, though. When Rick finally returns home with the kids, Jerry loses it, forcing Beth to choose between him and Rick. Everyone makes an excuse to leave the two of them alone, with Rick heading to the garage. Beth then walks in and announces,
Jerry's going to spend some time divorced.
I'm sorry to hear that, sweetie.
God, Dad, that is not your burden to bear.
Unlike Summer, Morty looks troubled by the news of his folks splitting up. Naturally, Rick looks at his struggling grandson, and let's make this interesting. Does he A, comfort Morty, or B, not do that? Let me know which option you think in the comments. Well, if you guessed C, do the exact opposite of that, you win! Yay! Yeah, sorry, it was a trick question, but if you've seen the show, you knew that there was always another option. Because Rick lets Morty in on a little something.
No more dad, Morty, so I made him and the government go away. Face them both as the de facto patriarch of your family and your universe.
See, I told you he didn't comfort Morty. But Rick's rant doesn't stop there as he tells Morty that he only rescued him and Summer to save himself. Dude's so completely unhinged, he makes the Joker look like a pretty chill dude.
I just took over the family, Morty. Go and do whatever I say, Morty. Forever.
See what I mean? He must be drunk with both booze and power when he finally wraps it all up with one last weird conversation.
I'm not driven by avenging my dead family, Morty. That was fake. I want that Mulan McNugget sauce, Morty.
Freaking sauce? What do you mean all this is for a sauce? I mean, okay, it could be worth it. Maybe it's just that I haven't tasted this legendary Szechuan sauce. Let me know in the comments if you tried it. How was it? Does it justify Rick's actions? That whole wife explosion thing must have caused him to snap if that's how he's speaking to his family. Though the backstory-based sadness is only amplified with this next one. Rick Mirai Jack is kind of a massive lore dump episode and shows us that being the smartest guy in the galaxy, or should I say one of the smartest guys in the galaxy, doesn't necessarily make you the happiest.
Crow Rick! Oh!
Looks like my arch nemesis Crow Scare and my sidekicks.
You are hardly the victim here.
Wrong. In this house, Rick is the victim. Rick rides into town on a giant metal crow as a gang of owls burn the place down. He then defeats them with the power of 1,000 crows, and as the crowd cheers, someone stands up. Morty. I'll keep it brief. The episode before this had Rick leave Morty and the rest of the Smith family for some crow companions, which is sad in its own right. But thankfully, his old partner is back, so all is well, right? Well, no, actually. Looks like Rick's all in on Rick and 2 crows. This can't be great for Morty's self-esteem. Later, a balding middle-aged Morty shows up at the bar, which doesn't faze Rick. Sadly, neither does the bad news from home.
Summer's a nurse. Well, pretty much a nurse. She married a junkie. Come home.
Morty, what we had wasn't healthy.
And this is?
Yeah, whatever happened to bros before crows? How is Rick choosing 2 or 1,000 crows over his actual family? Later that night, his beloved goth birds sneak off to his arch rival, where Rick walks in on them planning secret adventures. So karma's a bitch. Later, the prodigal grandpa comes a-knocking, and let's just say everyone's pissed. Besides Morty, considering he eagerly needs an adventure to fix his whole dad bod situation. See, Morty only made himself look older to emotionally blackmail Rick, but But now that he's back, well, we can't have midlife crisis Morty sticking around any longer, can we? As Morty hands him the portal gun, Rick asks his grandson/sidekick for some intel.
Okay, buddy, who sold you this shitty aging serum? What did he look like?
I got it from the Citadel.
I'm hitting the ground running with a Citadel episode.
You can't trust anything from that place, I swear. They head off to the Citadel, which now looks like a college campus, all thanks to its Morty president. They had to rebuild a Morty, where Morty becomes his young self again. At the cost of a 26-year-old disposal Morty, of course. The disposal Morty rushes out to stop a bit of political commotion, dying in the process. However, as the violent scene abruptly ends, an SUV rocks up and a bunch of Secret Service Ricks invite C-137 to dinner with the president, who has pardoned him. Unlike Morty, Rick's not really sold on the idea.
Okay, I guess things really are just going right back to how they were.
Fine, but the second he reveals he's evil, we're gone.
It's sarcastic, but hey, we just saw Rick C-137 Sanchez compromise with Morty. That's growth. When President Morty finally joins the two for dinner, he cracks a joke about capturing Rick, who immediately points a gun at the creepily confident president. Suave Morty just smugly laughs it off as our Morty tries to change Rick's mind by shamelessly glazing the guy, just completely amazed by this powerful, well-respected version of himself. But Rick sticks to his guns.
You know he practically built this place? Wait, what?
And now you're running it squeaky clean, right? That's why you got deformed Mortys coming up through the sewer lines talking about hope and change?
Fair enough.
He then says something about a central finite curve to Rick, which goes right over Morty's head, and mine too when I first saw it, to be honest. I just know it's bad because Rick immediately jumps up and says that they're leaving. But Morty doesn't move because he's determined to know what the President Morty was going on about. The president asks for about 10 more seconds to explain before catching them off guard with this.
Like I said, would have been a big help for you to tell me, but I should have everything I need from you now.
You can't scan an entire brain over appetizer.
Most of yours got scanned a long time ago.
So Rick's crazy paranoia was a sign of intelligence, not madness. Well, maybe both. Our Morty feels terrible because he vouched for this little tyrant who wastes no time ripping the band-aid off, dragging Morty and us into Rick's mind. Things get very, very dark, even by the show standards. I'll give this annoying kid one thing. He knows how to make a good iceberg.
You already know Rogue Ricks used Mortys to hide themselves from the Citadel. It worked so well that the Citadel became its own Morty market.
A Morty market. Yeah, I'll have to pass on that one, thanks. But Ricks think it's neat. I mean, why search the whole multiverse for free-range Mortys when you can just clone your own endless supply of them from manipulated and or stolen DNA? It's twisted efficiency at its peak. Dude, when I first watched this, my jaw and the floor were practically dating, bro. A smooth Morty casually sums up the entire horrifying concept before wrapping it all up.
He's attached to us infinitely through his weakness and our forgiveness. This is why we're with him.
Yeah, see what I mean, bro? It's dark. I can see why Morty would see Rick differently after that, but Rick uses a bionic finger to break the restraints before he can think too much about it. The guards inch forward as Rick frees Morty, but the little psycho calls them off, making Rick ask Morty if he refilled the portal gun after his last visit, to which he says yes, and Rick hesitates not at all.
Oh! Holy shit! One man that ever hacked my portal gun, and it turned out it was evil you.
It's all caught up.
Evil Morty living up to his name there. That explains all the bad vibes. After fighting some Ricks, they escape into the hall as Evil Morty tells Rick that he can't run away from his past forever. The fact that Evil Morty has sabotaged every portal gun in the Citadel also doesn't help. Rick's usual ducking and diving is no match for Morty's need for straight answers. So Rick hands him the brain device they stole, and we get front row seats to Rick's descent into madness. So it turns out that bomb backstory was pretty much true. Rick Prime murdered Rick C-137's family, then fueled by rage, C-137 went on an intergalactic multiversal quest to murder hundreds of thousands of innocent Ricks in hoping that he'd finally get the one who snatched his peaceful life away from him. We see him make his first portal gun, meet Bird Person, and even witness him return to a universe where his family survived, and he even steps into their life. It's a really heartbreaking and extremely loaded generational trauma dump, to say the least. Tragically, they don't have time to unpack any of it because Evil Morty suddenly appears in a bulletproof snow globe. As one does, he then shows them live streams from an infinite number of dimensions where countless Ricks terrorize countless Mortys. And honestly, I'm just glad he finally explains what a central finite curve is. It's Rick's wall around infinity.
We separated from all the infinite universes where he's the smartest man in the universe. Spent every version of all of our lives built around an infinite fucking baby.
So Rick made a wall around the universes where he wasn't the smartest man in the universe to ensure that he was always the smartest man in the universe. Yeah, this dude's a bundle of joy. Anywho, Evil Morty says he's only called evil because he's sick of Rick and wants to leave the curve. That's when normal Morty asks Rick if he just left the crows for Morty or if they dumped him. Rick bows his head in shame, as he should. Just then, Evil Morty destroys the central finite curve, flooding the streets with portal juice and killing a bunch of Rick and Mortys in some gruesome ways. Rick then tries to grab Morty as the Citadel collapses around them, but a huge piece of the structure lands on Rick, pinning him underneath.
You can come if you want. Don't blame me if you don't.
From where I sit, Morty, that's the best deal on the table.
Rick's one lucky SOB, and my boy Morty's got a heart of pure gold. Evil Morty's is, well, not so much. Shocker, right? Honestly, someone needs to hug this kid or play catch with him or something. He just straight up lied about having a spare seat for Morty. Rick and Morty save the survivors and flee the Citadel, but they're stranded in space, cut off from portal fluid. Sure, Rick saved the day, but nothing ever really changes for him. If anything, Evil Morty won, gaining a fresh, free world and a snazzy new yellow portal to boot. But Rick's hard luck only continues in the episode immediately following that one. As in Solo Rick's finally forced to face his past, his arch nemesis, and a forgotten digital guilt tripper.
Sounds like a version of nice.
We have grandkids. That's who Summer is. She reminds me of you.
Is she dead too?
Yeah, I guess sympathy wasn't built into this robot. Rick and Morty are still floating aimlessly after the chaos of the Citadel, stranded in space after their getaway saucer runs out of juice. Their hollow, bloodshot eyes and gaunt faces tell us that they stuck to, well, not eating humans. Unlike the Citadel Mortys, who went full feral, hopeless and hungry as they huddle up and gracefully wait for the sweet release of death.
Beth, maybe.
Wait, is that Beth? How did Beth get all the way up here? Back home, we see that Space Beth saved them, which checks out, but things aren't exactly smooth sailing. Remember how Rick's portal gun was damaged? Well, Rick tries to fix it, but ends up resetting portal travelers instead of resetting portal traveling. Jerry, Morty, and himself all start pulsing green, making Morty ask Rick a very valid question.
Rick, are we about to die?
No, we're about to vanish from this reality.
That's totally dying.
No, it isn't.
It's a one-way trip to their original universes. Not dead, but also not great. Especially for Rick, who goes back to Dimension C-137, where his past finally catches up to him.
Did you find our daughter's killer?
Not yet.
You'll find him. You always do everything except keep your family alive.
How can something without hands deliver such a brutal gut punch, dude? We learn that C-137 Alexa is an AI version of Diane created by Rick to torture himself. I'm convinced that Rick's love language is suffering because this thing has got no mute button. Determined to keep outrunning his past, Rick assembles a spaceship faster than most people microwave a burrito, tuning out the digital ghost's endless yapping, which only stops when a neighbor rings the doorbell. He asks Rick to help him make sense of a strange note from...
It's written by someone claiming to be me, trapped in the day of a traumatic event by the agony of a formidable intelligence, but also that my captor forgot about aging.
So that's why he's giving off that I went to school with Abe Lincoln energy. So this twisted time loop keeps everyone's souls young while their bodies waste away, which is quite disturbing to say the least. This mess has drunk and grief-stricken Rick Sanchez written all over it, but Rick's not giving up anything. He says he knows nothing before closing the door and pulling a lever, giving the old man what he truly yearned for. Finally, he heads heads towards the rift in the central finite curve to try and get home, with Summer and the Beths waiting on the other side. As Rick waits for Summer on the ship, he admits to these there accidentally because he can't find their killer. I can almost feel his inner struggle here, torn between vengeance and healing. Summer and the two Beths finally send him a pin, but then as he heads off, the AI drops a bombshell.
If you were pulled home by whatever happened, it's likely our target was as well. He's having as much trouble leaving as you are.
Talk about putting the intel in artificial intelligence. Looks like revenge is back on the menu. Morty's lost in the prime dimension and bawling his eyes out when a ship crashes nearby. The sight of his grandpa snaps him out of it, but his Rick is here on a manhunt, not on a rescue mission. Rick finally spots his target as they hop onto the ship, where Morty's curious about the nature of their mission.
Where are we going?
To kill your grandpa, little buddy.
My original Rick killed your family? You were just waiting for him to come back?
I don't think Morty gets it. By Morty, I mean me. The Morty he's been around this entire time is nothing but a constant reminder of the Rick who got away. That's cold. Anyways, it looks like they're in the middle of nowhere until Rick drops a gadget that reveals Prime Rick's lair. Or is it? There's a very real possibility that this dude's just trolling Rick when they find a naked clone of him dancing in a tube as pre-recorded messages make fun of him. He sets some killbots on them, which Rick fights off as Prime taunts him all the while, saying there's a 50-50 chance he'll fight him if he goes down the chute. An obvious bluff, but Rick's rage is so raw that it stops him from seeing the bigger picture, or maybe he just doesn't care.
Wait, my moms are in trouble!
Those versions of them are.
We gotta save them! If you go down there, he's just gonna kill you!
Good.
What?
Morty tries to give Rick a wake-up call by threatening to go down the chute, forcing Rick to pause. He reminds Rick that he's not alone, but as the message starts to land, countdowns appear everywhere, signaling imminent doom. Summer and the two Beths are nervously preparing to square up against a giant space monster when Rick and Morty land on it, killing it. Looks like Morty convinced his I guess adoptive grandpa now, to prioritize family over revenge. A rare moral W for C-137. They arrive home after fetching their Jerry, and everyone's in high spirits.
You know, I guess it doesn't matter where we're from if we're together, huh?
This is everyone's original dimension now.
Ugh, you're back.
Someone's in a good mood. It's season 2 Jerry, and he's acting like a little baby, lashing out at everyone. He then accidentally releases Mr. Frundles, a cute but deadly parasitic boogan that turns everything into Mr. Frundles, which is exactly as random and unexpected as it sounds. So all hell breaks loose, and the family is forced to jump ship to another dimension to escape, and it's a total, disaster without portal travel. Thankfully, the gang does manage to find a universe where they all died soon after their journey home, and things return to how they should be, kind of. You know, just gotta deal with the fact that they call Parmesan Parmesan. Not really the biggest deal, in my opinion. They even shrug off Rick's edgelord BS about not caring about them before heading inside. Well, everyone except for Morty, who makes Rick promise that he's not just using him as bait. Actually, it's not even a promise being made. He just asks for reassurance.
For you to be bait, the guy'd have to value something. He truly does not give a shit. He's the real deal.
The way Rick's looking at the floor says it all. This Rick is irredeemable and is absolute pure evil. Though Morty should maybe trust his instincts, because I'm not convinced that our Rick's beyond using his grandson as bait. Too far? Well, the next one shows us exactly how far he's willing to go to get his precious payback. In Unmort Rickin', Rick finally faces off against his biggest nemesis, and he's faced with the tragedy that the only thing worse than not getting what you want is succeeding.
Attachment is death, bro. That's what I've learned chasing this guy.
The episode starts with a heated discussion between Rick and Morty. Apparently, Morty's had it with going up some creature's poop chute, which I think is a ridiculously low bar to set, but Rick's not having it, yelling at him to just quit if he wants to. Then Morty does a complete 180. He just apologizes and offers Rick a drink. Maybe wait, I think something's up since it's go haywire, but Rick just tucks into the drink.
Rick and Morty, 100 years.
Yeah, pal, 100 years.
Wait, I knew my wait, I think something's up senses would never fail me. It's evil Morty. I hate to imagine what's happening behind that closed garage door, because he's more of a show, don't tell type Morty. Next up, evil Morty and a suspiciously obedient Rick portal across a couple dimensions to kidnap different Ricks and Mortys, shooting them with tranquilizer guns and bringing them to his lair. I must also be sedated, because I didn't know this was a history lesson until... Why am I not surprised that the bad guy wants to get into politics? We then see that the little twerp has been doing quite well for himself since he left our Morty and Rick out to rot. But an unknown vessel suddenly interferes with his defense field, turning his slice of heaven into a space monster playground. I'm not shocked by who's on the ship, but the fact that they weren't even trying to go at evil Morty.
Good to see you outside the sub-basement. Giving it your best shot?
Thanks, buddy. It means a lot that your bar for mental health has gotten lower than mine.
Wait, Rick got a bar for mental health? And why am I not surprised it's the Grand Canyon? Turns out they're looking for Rick Prime by finding and killing each of his decoys. They're hunting him by fracking the finite curve, by merging dimensions, whatever that fracking means. But Evil Morty knows what's up, and hell, it even looks like he's better at this than Rick. He tells Rick to make some minor adjustments before they capture another Rick Prime lookalike. Evil Morty says that Rick will have to give him credit for the kill if it's the real deal.
You little narcissist.
Dude, literal glass house.
You think, can I offer my 2 cents? Morty, no!
I can't with this kid, dude. Also, why is he always right? Next, these black tentacles grab the 3 of them and toss them into one of Rick Prime's traps. Their cellmates are other Ricks who also got too close to Rick Prime, whose face is then projected all over each wall. This dude sure does love a good pre-recorded video message. I'm a little taken aback by the depth of his madness when his voice is as upbeat as a game show host when he tells them,
Some of you may have noticed that it's not just your Diane that's gone, and you might be wondering why.
I'd rather hear how.
No one was asking you, Evil Morty. The answer this evil child is looking for is the Omega device. Sounds harmless, right? But it's actually capable of erasing people from every dimension, and we know it works because he used it on Diane. So Rick Prime makes the different Ricks duke it out in a last man standing type deal, which works out great for Rick because he has not one, but 2 sidekicks on his team. After a gore fest of a battle, he comes out on top, and true to his word, Rick Prime does give him the chance to see a Diane.
Hey, Diane.
Sucks at eating pie!
But I also won't deny it. I was young.
Gotta respect a man who can fess up to his shortcomings. Just as they get rid of that diabolical version of Diane, a wall of flames erupts, slowly covering each section of the box. Luckily, Evil Morty and Rick make a great team because their unlikely collab gets them out of there in no time. On his way back, Rick managed to snag a sample of that black goo, which helps him track down Prime's locale, and so he speeds off, leaving the 2 Mortys behind.
You're afraid of the weapon? What happens if Rick actually kills this guy? Maybe he'll kill himself next? You're an asshole. I'm not good, Morty.
Okay, he's got a point. Even a professional Evil Morty hater like me can see that. Meanwhile, Rick has finally made it to Rick Prime's lair, which also happens to be the home of the Omega device. They at last meet face to face. Both Ricks are surprised when the 2 Mortys portal into their battleground, breaking the tension and kicking off the fisticuffs. As they expertly dodge each other's attacks, Rick Prime wants to show off some mods he's made to his supervillain weapon with a cruel little demo.
Uncle Slow?
Yeah, this one hurts me too.
Not to victim blame here, but maybe using your powers to make your agonizing death also slow isn't the best of moves. Anywho, they both get knocked out after literally ripping each other limb from limb, but Rick Prime's got the upper hand because he uses some high-tech voodoo to heal himself, getting up in one piece. He then sees Morty, who's visibly shaking as he greets them.
Nice to meet you, I guess.
Should I just get this over with, or... grandson.
He's cooking, and it's not just the electricity engulfing him. Call me fickle, but I've changed my mind about this evil little guy. I mean, disguising himself as regular Morty to catch Rick Prime off guard, that is peak genius. Evil Morty drags him away and hooks him up to some kind of mind-stealing device. And after he's done stealing the Omega device blueprints from Rick Prime's mind, he drags Rick's lifeless body into the room before leaving him to it.
And what did you do with it? Raise echoes of my daughter? What's your life without me?
So Rick finally gets the chance to beat Rick Prime to death. Years of pain and revenge, fantasies culminating in this brutal scene. But the moment Rick starts landing punches, it's clear that this isn't the catharsis that he thought it'd be. Instead of feeling triumphant, Rick looks lost, like he's been punching at ghosts. Rick comes out looking like a geriatric Homelander. Sadly, this is not the epic victory he's been dreaming of. Evil Morty, my boy, really proves that he is smarter than the Ricks, because he doesn't intend to use the weapon, saying that the consequences aren't exactly worth it before he portals off.
Man, when those drones uncloaked back there, I was like, oh shit.
Wow, who knew emptiness could be so palpable? This one sure made the lump in my throat show up uninvited. Rick's 1,000-yard stare says it all. Vengeance didn't heal anything. He just added another layer into the pit of despair. And speaking of pits, the next episode puts Rick's psyche under a microscope as he faces the Fear Hole. Dumb name, I know. In Fear No Mort, we see that Rick's happiness always comes at a heavy price tag. We also learn that sometimes your deepest fears are the ones you don't even recognize.
So what? He's scared of love?
Everyone's
scared of love, dipshit. It takes a very rare, very powerful being to be terrified of happiness.
Rick and Morty walk around a strange alien theme park, Carnival of Nightmares, where they're bored out of their minds. Enter a man in a suit claiming to be a fear connoisseur, offering them a chance to face their deepest fears.
Well, sign me up.
The three of them hop onto the ship, and as the weird suit guy directs them, he says that there's only one place for guys like them.
Few real fears left to conquer, right down here.
Okay, what the hell?
Yeah, I think I'm with Morty on this. I think we all know that the scariest place on Earth is actually Waffle House, not Denny's. Kind of feels like the suit guy just wanted a free ride. Since they're already there, Rick and Morty head in order, with the waiter telling them that they can find something called the fear hole in the men's room. In a public bathroom, should have known. Regardless, they head into the restroom and spot a TV, VCR combo and press play.
Welcome to the hole. You jump in, the hole manifests your greatest fear. Come out, well, fearless. And you get your picture on the wall.
No way, take my money! I mean, who doesn't dream of having their picture on the wall in the men's bathroom at a Denny's? While Rick isn't sold, Morty makes a run for it and hops right on into the hole. After Morty's attacked by some weird monsters, Rick rushes in to save his grandson, earning a Polaroid for the two on the wall. Morty's shaken, but Rick is oddly happy to just feel something. In fact, Rick's beaming as he tells his entire family that he and Morty soiled themselves at Denny's. Then suddenly, a portal opens in the lounge.
What the hell?
Bomb, take care of our...
Diane? Looks like shit in his pants is the least of Rick's problems. Diane's freaking out, and so are Beth and Summer. Rick and Morty run to the garage. They try to find out if they're still in the hole. They then go out for ice cream with Beth and Diane, who are still shaken. At the ice cream parlor, Rick's more focused on injecting himself with aging serum than sugar cones and sprinkles, clearly looking for a different kind of sugar. But Diane's just worried about baby Beth. Plus, Rick's whole lecherous vibe is giving her the ick, not winning any brownie points by claiming,
"This may as well be our real daughter because she's just as real as you. You're all basically NPCs, so your side quests don't matter. The main quest is us."
Dang, Rick, I don't know where you're going with that. Someone needs to get off of 4chan. They all head home where Rick and Morty try to work out what the fear hole wants, and Morty says maybe Rick's biggest fear is reconnecting with Diane and failing. Rick brushes it off, but the next morning he goes full-on love bomber and builds a robot to bring Diane waffles, which kind of works. Later, they start drinking and drinking, leading to a post-puke heart-to-heart in the alley where we see how down bad Rick really is when he tells her that Morty
thinks this is happening because my greatest fear is letting you go.
Then don't kiss me.
I'm old and we have puke mouth.
So that's pretty disgusting, and I think maybe Morty called it. Next, Rick's snazzy new suit is doing nothing to hide his whole Beetlejuice vibe. Morty's worried that the more he immerses himself in this illusion, the more he fades away. But Rick won't let a little dying ruin this romance for him. Well, at this point, Morty's had enough, and he races back to the Denny's to find the suit dude, and he does. Morty joins him, and their chat is far from what I'd call comforting.
Rick will die before accepting happiness. Grandpa, yummy, yummy, Grandpa's gonna die.
That's a bit extreme. Denny's really needs to work on their customer support. Eventually, Morty tries to sacrifice himself to the hole, working out that his biggest fear is not being accepted. To break the fear hole's grip, Morty decides to embrace some embarrassing decisions. Meanwhile, Rick's enjoying his date with his dead wife when things start to get a little strange.
What was that?
Diane.
Hey,
Diane.
stay with me, Diane.
Rick?
Fucking Morty, he's trying to hog the hole.
Hog the hole? Surely there's a better way to say that, right? They arrive at a theater where Morty's trying to face his fear of rejecting by standing naked in front of a mocking audience. Rick's shook when he sees that Morty's also not looking so hot. He tells Diane that he has to get Morty out of there as he realizes that his selfish desire to stay in this fantasy world is not worth losing Morty. Then Rick lets Diane go and faces his fear of losing her head on, which feels like a moment of growth. My doubts about his rap career aside.
This is my grandson. Don't look at his pee-pee. Put your eyes on me. Loose dog in my ass. Rickety masterclass.
I won't lie, the dude's got some bars. Finally, Diane waves before fading away. Having both faced their fears, Rick and Morty finally emerge from the fear hole, but something still feels off. The fear hole is starting to feel like one of those Russian nesting dolls. The scary thing is, they're still trapped in the hole's vicious cycle, despite facing a constant stream of fears like this.
$8 for a side of bacon?
Are you f***ing kidding me?
It's a symptom of a larger concern, Morty.
Are we done here?
I don't know.
Hey, that's enough fear shaming. I can't count how many sleepless nights I've had tossing and turning about the rising price of bacon. When they eventually make their way home after they've been through all their fears, Morty doesn't really trust reality anymore, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it seems fine. We even get one of those acoustic indie song montages of them going through the years. Morty going through college, Summer getting married, an ancient-looking Rick shooting up age serum, Morty buying a house, and then one day...
Oh my god! I've turned into my dad! Oh, maybe there's no way out. Maybe we were born here.
Guess it just took its time, but there's the other shoe dropping, unlike the cost of bacon. That's a long time to keep up a hoax. Gotta give it to the hole. Nah, not like that. So when Morty refuses to get up, I don't blame him for losing faith in what's real or not, but then Rick says that he's not leaving without Morty because Morty's irreplaceable, leading to Morty's actual breakthrough when he realizes...
It's been about me! You're not even in the hole!
Your fear of relying on Rick has been delicious.
Delicious? Nah, it's more than that. This fear hole is more of an all-you-can-eat suffer trauma buffet. By recognizing that his fear is not being irreplaceable to Rick, Morty finally breaks free and gets his picture on the wall. Price? Just a truckload of irreparable emotional trauma. Speaking of emotional baggage, in The Wedding Squanchers, we squanch into a celebration when love, loyalty, and trust all take a dramatic nosedive.
This is on you guys. I told you weddings are stupid.
We open up with the family enjoying breakfast, tossing around some typical jabs toward Jerry's questionable employment status. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door. Some strange hovering creature blows straight past Jerry, makes a beeline to Rick, and delivers this message.
Greetings, this is Bird Person.
And Tyranny.
For our mate melding ceremony.
Oh, there goes Rick's invite to my wedding. Jerry, the king of bad luck, gets totally kidnapped by the creature, and guess who has to bail him out? Yes, Rick and the family, who make their way to Planet Squanch in Bird Person's wedding. We then see Rick at the bar confronted by Morty for not being a supportive friend. Morty, bless his soul, tells Rick to lighten up and enjoy the wedding, to which Rick responds,
"Excuse me, bartender, can you make me a dumb grandson pep talk and a lot of vodka?"
Wow, Morty's the only guy I know whose grandpa is just a frickin' total bitch, man. The things don't get any better at the reception either. After Tammy and Bird Person tie the knot, it's time for some celebration and everyone's having a good time. Till Rick decides to get up and give his best man speech.
At a certain point, you gotta ask yourself, what are the odds this is legit, not just some big lie we're all telling ourselves because we're afraid to die alone? That's exactly how we all die. Alone.
Oh boy.
This speech wouldn't be out of place at a funeral. Luckily, he changes his tune, saying, if Bird Person truly loves Tammy, then so does he, because Bird Person's his best friend. Well, at least it all had a happy ending, right? Tammy then gives her speech and ensures that Rick's moment of opening himself up is short-lived.
M is a deep cover agent for the Galactic Federation, and this entire building is, in a certain sense, surrounded.
Of course it was too good to be true. She tries to arrest everyone at the wedding, but this crowd ain't going without a fight. Bird Person tries to reason with his young bride, but she just straight up mows him down with a machine gun. Oh, man. The entire Galactic Federation crashes the place, and eventually Tammy has Rick at gunpoint, ordering him to surrender his portal gun. But my guy's got a little trick up his sleeve. While Tammy is stunned, Rick makes a run for it, grabs a machine gun, and goes on an absolute tear, before Squanchy holds off the feds to give the Smith family a chance to escape. What a guy! After a close call with some fake robo-parents, the family finally makes it away, but Jerry wants to know about Rick's involvement with the Federation and how he could be so dishonest with them, to which Rick says,
Oh, should I have been more open and trusting and loving like my now dead best friend? Or your daughter who is BFFs with an intergalactic narc?
Rick then gives the family a nice round of fuck yous before he tells them they can't go home, ever. They're clearly distraught as Rick devises a new plan since Earth is now a no-go zone. First, they try out a planet that's a bit too small before heading to one where everything is on a cob, which is apparently incredibly dangerous. Finally, third time's the charm as they find a perfectly beautiful Earth-esque planet. One problem, though.
Dad, how long are the days on this planet?
Now that roosters were annoying. And what's worse, the days there last 42 hours. So yeah, no, they ain't going there. Meaning the family is forced to head back to the ultra-small Earth. They huddle up in a log cabin and listen to the news, and it's not good.
The obscure planet known as Earth, formerly the hiding place of fugitive Rick Sanchez, the 6,048th planet to join the Galactic Federation.
Now I know how Hawaii felt being brought into the U.S. Rick decides to take a solo trip to the South Pole when the crushing reality of their situation tension sets in, with Jerry suggesting turning Rick in. Usually I would judge, but man, tough times do require you to make tough decisions. Jerry argues that all their sacrifices are meaningless if they're for someone who only cares about himself, but Rick at least has some backup in Summer and Morty.
No matter how much it hurts you, we're gonna do whatever Rick wants.
Yes!
Why?
Because I don't want him to leave again, you dumb asshole!
That explains why she's always putting up with her dad's shenanigans. Rick ends up overhearing the whole exchange and has a rare moment of self-reflection. He sits and processes his thoughts, facing the harsh truth regarding his selfish and destructive ways. After leaving the cave, Rick runs into Morty, who asks him where he's going. Rick just pulls the old daddy going to get milk card and says he's going for ice cream, which makes Morty ask him,
Rick, I can handle it if you go, but you'll break Mom's heart, and I won't forgive you for that. Where's the van, Morty? It's over the horizon.
Now there's a guy who isn't going to get ice cream. Rick takes off in a space van, dials up the Federation, and snitches on himself while pretending to be Jerry. An actual selfless act? Maybe people can change. He then makes his way to a tavern and gets himself a cold one while he waits for the feds to take him away. Meanwhile, the family heads back to Earth where the Federation's in charge, but Rick is not so lucky. I guess no good deed goes unpunished, huh? This shot of Rick being in prison is very iconic and really puts a cherry on top of the whole awful day that he's had. He already had his best friend die and his family ditch him. Why not be locked up for life? Though fear not, that best friend is not entirely dead. Rick Ternal Friendshine of a Spotless Mort is a nod to a film that's equal parts genius and equal parts heartbreak. Naturally, this episode sees Rick trying to use his genius to help heal Bird Person's heartbreak, even sharing some of his own tips for mental well-being.
Eat my ass, BP, because you don't want to process your grief and shame like a normal person.
Maybe Rick should stick to crazy inventions and steer clear of crazy interventions. It begins with the Smith family leaving Rick home alone, and instead of just moping around, Rick activates the best friend rejuvenation sequence, which is just a high-tech sign of Rick's inability to let go. He brings Bird Person, now Phoenix Person, back, well, like 57% of them anyway, laid out on the other side of a secret wall. After consulting his AI, he figures out he'll have to find Bird Person's mind beneath the subconscious if he wants a shot at bringing him back, and so he dives right in.
I get to keep my clothes. I thought for sure I'd have to be naked to go through something this artsy. Oh man, no fair.
The price you pay for art. Inside Bird Person's mind, Rick finds himself at the start of their friendship and some alien music festival. Luckily, it's the kind of setting folks won't bat an eye at seeing a naked old man. He tries to find present Bird Person, but he keeps moving through various memories of their history together. Then the Rick from memory catches Rick building a tracker. They actually seem to be getting along quite well until...
I'm coming with, now that I know my life is a lie. Hey, look over there.
We will make our stand at Blood Ridge.
Guess Rick's penchant for abandoning those close to him even extends to himself, because of course it does. He eventually catches up to the real Bird Person on a rooftop, watching a memory of one of his early dates with Tammy. Then Rick tells Bird Person that he's in a coma and will die unless he goes with Rick. His feathered bro just flies off, leading the Federation troops right to his pal. And who comes to the rescue? Memory Rick, who helps him snag a win. Back in the garage, both Rick and Bird Person are not looking too hot.
Situation not looking ideal. Existence undergoing contemplation. Perspective required.
I'm not a vet, but I know rabies when I see it. Meanwhile, Rick finally gets a moment away from Memory Rick and tracks down Bird Person, who clearly wants nothing to do with him, finding his now ex-friend in his mind's control room. Bird Person then tries to spell it out for Rick.
Don't you get it? I came here to end it all. You were a good friend, Rick.
I thought running away from loved ones was Rick's MO. I suppose it's true what they say about birds of a feather. Bird Person then blows up his memory tree, which makes the ongoing battle with the Federation more intense. They eventually end up in the Battle of Blood Ridge, Rick and Bird Person's Nom, and their last chance to fight the Federation together. And it's pretty epic, I'm not gonna lie. Though after the Federation loses, Rick tries to shield Memory Rick from what he feels as the worst part of the battle, when he shared his secret about the portal gun with Bird Person, telling him that they could just cruise the multiverse together, and even tells him,
"You matter to me."
The relationship that we have
I never used that word.
is not worth my
Oh
integrity.
my god.
Am I crazy or is Rick overreacting here? Maybe I'm reaching. I think he was stung not only by the rejection, but by his friend low-key implying he doesn't have integrity. Memory Rick then asks him why he's risking for such an asshole, and shockingly, Rick says it's because he loves him. Alright, fair. They then track Bird Person to his sanctuary, where he's watching the sunset with Tammy, who comes out as a narc. Again, no one cares. Rick tells him he needs to deal with his pain like a normal person, and Bird Person interjects, telling Rick that he died on the day of his wedding, which leads Rick to dropping a colossal bombshell.
I was getting to it. I bet she didn't even tell you about the kid.
Think I'd know if I had a kid.
You're a memory, and he doesn't know because an army of brainalyzer protocols walled off any memories post-Phoenix person.
Would this then make Bird Person a dead beak dad? I'm sorry, that was not the time. This is not the time. Tammy then works out that if he did have a child, Bird Person is considered a terrorist by the Federation. His child would either be a prisoner or a fugitive. The moment Bird Person decides that he wants to live, the Federation bursts in to kill him. As they make a run for it, Rick remembers a memory wiping device in his garage, which the two head off to get. Suddenly, a cop Tammy riding Phoenix Man tries to stop them.
Rick Sanchez, you're under arrest for making me spend 2 years in Earth High School.
I think anyone who spent time in Earth High School feels her anger there. Their only exit is their first memory together, but they need to do some weird memory fusion stuff to get there. Taking them through Gearman's funeral, Squanchy's failed comedy routine, and the band they formed, and they were high. Look, we've all been there. Luckily, it's at a music festival they met, meaning they're in the perfect spot to make a run for it.
I'm sorry for killing you and turning you into a cyborg. I really did love you.
I loved you too. Goodbye, Tamantha.
Maybe not the best time for goodbyes, no matter how touching. They narrowly escape the collapse of Bird Person's mind and find themselves back in Rick's garage, but I'm not surprised when the winged fella has some questions for Rick. Bird Person finally confronts him about hiding the truth about his child, and Bird Person feels betrayed as he works that—
You did not know of the child when you came to rescue me, refrained from sharing until necessary to save yourself.
Fair enough.
Moments like these remind us that Rick is not as smart as we think. Because what's the point of any of this high-tech stuff if he just wants to connect with people, but can't stop his own selfishness from ruining things? Though Rick's got another shot at making a friend in the Jer-Rick trap, as this one shows us that even the most polar opposite of personalities can find common ground when they start to see the world through each other's eyes.
Remember how we met? Non-rescue of Morty?
We were thinking we were different and accusing each other of being bad. Morty reminded us we both love our family, brought us together.
Starts off with Rick tinkering on his flying saucer in the garage, only to be interrupted by Jerry, who wants to have a heart-to-heart. But surprise, surprise, Rick's not interested. Jerry insults Rick's intellect, meaning now he's gotta prove a point. Rick sets up a machine that'll swap their minds to show Jerry that intelligence is earned. This can only end well. The two hook up to the machine, set it off, and it's a success. Rick's mind is now in Jerry's body, while Jerry's mind takes over Rick's body, and this causes Rick to have a full-on nervous breakdown, leading to...
Wait, no!
Golly goober, that's one way to deal with a breakdown. Meanwhile, Jerry struggles to control Rick's cybernetic body and ends up triggering his shoe propeller, darting him across the room head first. Luckily, Rick's emergency medical system is here to save the two dead men. Wish my garage could reanimate me. The two wake up with stitches on their head, with the robot helping them successfully evade death. They begin to argue, however, mid-argument, they come to a shocking revelation.
Jerry, your mind did that to my body using my brain.
Jerry, my mind in your body. Pretty easy to follow.
It shuffled us.
Bit of shuffling? Best of both worlds, hopefully. Well, maybe not. Midway through brainstorming a solution, Chuxley, this crime boss dude, calls to deliver the bad news. They've accidentally captured Morty. Following a cringe-filled conversation with Chuxley, Rick blames Jerry for chiming in, claiming their back and forth mid-call ruined the mystique he's worked so hard to establish. Disgruntled, but with no other choice, Rick and Jerry are forced to cooperate, flying to Crime Town together where Chuxley and his henchmen await them. As they're talking with him, Rick and Jerry...
Doesn't matter. The guy's already kissing your ass.
It's the ass kissers you have to keep in line. They move on you.
What are we, Walter White? Who cares if a mid-tier crime dork moves on us?
Really, guys? You couldn't have done this elsewhere? Sensing a crack in Rick's mystique, Chuxley's demeanor shifts. He's afraid of Rick no longer. With the fear gone, Chuxley instructs Morty to leave the crystals, with Rick figuring out the crime boss no longer sees him as a threat. After some more Jerry and Rick bickering, things reach a boiling point.
At this point, we're bad gangsters if we don't roll the dice. Start killing them!
Can't be a gangster without some risky bets, I guess? They burst into a seemingly peaceful restaurant, but quickly realize the diners are as grimy as the gangsters. More bickering happens, leaving Morty to head off for Rick's ship on his own. Eventually, though, Rick and Jerry find some common ground.
Way to go! Now my son and grandson hates us!
He's my son and grandson, too!
Huh. We do share an agenda in that sense.
Did Rick and Jerry finally come to an agreement? No frackin' way! They go on a killing spree, so they start to warm up to each other. Morty gets strangled by Chuxley on the upper level of the building, which leads them to...
You might feel a pinch and maybe a rocket.
You'll have to aim.
That's the kind kind of visual you can only get from Rick and Morty. They make their way back home and seem to be in good spirits. The two in-laws begin building a neural interface and start spending quality time together, even warming up to all the annoying things they find about each other. With the neural interface complete, the two goof off for a bit, with things eventually taking an unexpected turn.
This was fun. Rick would never have been able to admit that.
It's a shame those guys had to become us to be happy.
I don't like that look. The family wakes up to the in-laws missing with only a note in their place. Doesn't even reveal where they are either. What's the point? Cut to a floating city in deep space where Rick and Jerry are on the run after stealing some stolen crystals from a gang of goons. Wild, right? Safe to say, they never changed back. Rick gets shot mid-chase, but luckily the duo makes it to the ship. Blarp, Morty's underworld contact, tips the rest of the family on their whereabouts for free. However, they soon find out why.
What's the problem, kid?
Chuxley, you're alive?
How the hell did that man survive a cone head-aside? Chuxley informs Rick and Jerry that he has their family, meaning the two have to take a moment away from their usual adventures to brainstorm a rescue plan, and thankfully, they've got their best idea in their back pocket. Morty and the girls find themselves hanging by chains with guns pointed towards them in an industry factory building until...
Jerry?
Rick?
Grandpa?
Jesus Christ!
You are safe now.
Holy shit! Perfectly melded together?
Yes, I am Jariki. Whatcha?
What am I looking at, man? With both Rick and Jerry's best qualities combined into Jer-Ricky, Chuxley makes one last attempt to fight back, but the Jer-Rick fusion just decimates the field. They stood no chance. The family then escapes aboard Rick's flying saucer, finally making it back home. They walk in on Jer-Ricky tinkering with the flying saucer, preparing to leave them behind. The family tries to talk them out of leaving, but he ain't budging. And all hope of Rick and Jerry returning to their former selves seems to be lost until...
Morty, there's a memory of myself as a 30-year-old. He kept our egos intact. Memory Rick, he's still trapped in here.
Thank the heavens for Memory Rick. Saved us from that monstrous thing taking over the series. Finally, Rick and Jerry go back to their original bodies and right back to hating each other. Even after all that, Rick's left with no real friend. That is a pretty rough fate.